When I heard that Phil Pizzo was the candidate for the new dean for the medical school, I thought this couldn't be worse.
My very first encounter with Phil was Phil showing up and throwing out the previous 2 or 3 years of my life's work.
There was, I guess, a couple weeks where I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to work directly for Phil.
So Chris, when Dean Pizzo first came and canceled the Gale project, was that when you really first hatched the plan to run away to Vietnam?
He gets up at 4 o'clock and runs about 10 miles in the morning, and my standard joke when somebody wanted a meeting, I would say, I don't have any time, but I've got 4:30 at the top of the dish. I can schedule you then. And people would laugh. And some of them would actually say, yes, I'll do it.
Phil's a Renaissance man. And when you say to Phil, hey Phil, what are you going to do on your sabbatical? And he says, I'm going to run a super marathon. Or you ask Phil, what kind of music do you listen to? And he says, I'm working my way through a list of the 100 greatest novels of all time.
I didn't have to think that hard about it. I was so inspired by hearing that there was a dean who had actually done a strategic plan and had a vision. And I thought, wow, I want to work for a leader like that.
Dean Pizzo asked me what I thought was wrong with the campus. Not knowing anything better, I said, well, I had a hard time finding this place. And he just was delighted at that answer and then proceeded to tell me the story of his first journey to Stanford University in the School of Medicine. And he got into a cab and asked the cabbie to take him to the School of Medicine at Stanford University, and the cabbie had no idea what to do.
My second meeting with Phil was then in April after he had become the dean, where he asked me to come and meet with him and talk about how he might go about his plans for doing a strategic plan for the School of Medicine.
After I got to know Phil, and we were trying to do something to move discoveries, to go back and do more basic science relevant to the clinical. Phil's solution was the most important and innovative change at Stanford Medical School since Stanford moved from the city down here to the farm.
Phil has made a tremendous mark on this school, transforming us not only to become one of the top medical schools in the nation, but also with some really new ideas, creating new avenues that had previously been thought impossible.
Under Phil's leadership, we've expanded our academic excellence, recruited tremendous numbers of new faculty, had leaders here win Nobel Prizes, advanced our clinical enterprise, truly focused on quality, safety, and the patient experience. And indeed, under Phil's leadership, we're now the leader in NIH grants in the United States per faculty.
Phil was directly leading an enterprise that changed half of the School of Medicine only for 2 years. But if you really think of the wider tenure, he's changed a lot more than just that. From the Clark Center in 2003, 2004, to all the properties on Welch Road that we're redeveloping now, as well as the new Porter Park, Technology and Innovation Park. He's had just a transformative, and that I don't use that word loosely, transformative impact on the School of Medicine and the university and the hospital as a whole.
Look at us now. It's obvious where the front door is, and that row of palm trees is just so important to defining that. And having the LKSC and the Loki Center and the Discovery Walk, it's just all been quite amazing.
Dr. Pizzo has really pushed the idea of having graduate students and medical students interacting. It's really important for us to get to know each other if we're going to share space and take classes together and do research together.
The one thing that I think students really appreciate is just how committed he is to students and making sure that they have a space for themselves. The 4th floor of LKSC is only accessible to medical and grad students. If you go to Dr. Pizzo's office, you will see that his view is not necessarily the nicest view, but the student view is just one of the best views on campus.
Again, none of this would be possible without Dean Pizzo's commitment to not only graduate education, but commitment to creating a wonderful community for the students here at Stanford.
Phil's leadership is consistent with this style that takes charge and yet has a certain element of humility in it.
The trust that people have in Phil and the belief that he's talking about something larger than himself really sets him apart as a leader. Does this mean that people agree with him all the time? No. And he can be very direct where he thinks self-interest is driving the discussion as opposed to what's important for the greater good. But you best believe that when people disagree with him, they're still listening.
The night of the Nobel this year, when Brian Kobilka won the Nobel, I waited for an hour to call Phil Pizzo. And I said, you know, Phil, Brian Kobilka's won the Nobel, and he was very excited about it. So within an hour, I get this most elegant, thoughtful description of Brian Kobilka, his work, his character. I was just blown away by it.
One of the things that impressed me about Phil from the get-go was how well he sort of intuitively understood the value of communication in being a leader. And the newsletter was a perfect example of that.
Phil united the medical school in his dean's newsletter, which I enjoy thoroughly. I'm not sure anybody else does, but I do.
When I'll meet with him and say, hey, you know, in the newsletter when you said X, he still seems a little surprised that anyone reads it, you know?
We had a faculty member write to us to say that his department had told him that he'd been promoted, but he hadn't seen it in the newsletter, and so he wasn't sure it was real.
How he gets all those facts, figures, numbers, details in his head all the time is beyond me. And when does he write it?
You can send him an email any time of the day or practically any time of the night, and he will respond almost immediately. And in fact, you could probably time when it must be that he sleeps.
We were walking with him one day, and he was pointing out, it was an aha moment for him where he pointed out that the idea of an out-of-office message was meaningless because you could always be reached. And to him, that was the penultimate in connection. Everybody else was mortified, but I think Phil just thought that was a wonderful thing. He is always connected to this place. He always will be connected to this place.
What's great about Phil is he's so human, he's so humane, he's so down to earth. He embraces all members of the community. It's not just staff, it's faculty at all levels, it's students and trainees. At events, his usual mode of operating is to go around table by table, and he has something to say to everyone at the table, and he makes sure that you feel like you were noticed by the dean of the School of Medicine.
I don't think I've ever seen Dr. Pizzo eat. He's too busy making his way around the room, talking to people, getting to know people.
I think maybe the more appropriate question is, have I ever seen him eat anything besides a power bar?
I'm trying to think if I've ever seen him sit down with a plate of food in front of him and actually consume it.
I'm not sure he does eat. I think he photosynthesizes.
One thing I really think that is incredibly unique about Phil is just this innate sense of kindness in the man. I had probably been here for about a year when my son was about to be born prematurely at Packard Hospital, and the moment Phil came in and sat beside my wife's bed and sort of talked her through it and made her understand and told her how, you know, despite what was going on, what just talent and expertise we have here and how it was going to be okay, and it is valuable. It is a memory that we will never, ever forget.
Thank you to Dean Pizzo for his years of service and his work with us students. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Best wishes to you, Dean. Such a warm and wonderful and approachable person to work with.
Hi, Phil. I'm glad to have this opportunity to congratulate you and thank you for everything you've done for the university, for the medical center, for our department, and also for me in the past couple of years. So I wish you the best on whatever you're going to be doing in the future.
Phil Pizzo is an incredibly dedicated and hardworking man, but he has a gravitas about him that, especially when it involves running, that pales in comparison to his deanship. I'd like to wish him the best in this new chapter in his life.
Thank you, Phil. I really enjoyed, and it's been an honor to serve under you.
Thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you, Dean Pizzo, for this incredible experience and making these 5 years at Stanford truly inspiring.
Goodbye, Dean Pizzo. Thank you so much for all you've done for us. We really appreciate it.
I wish you the best of luck in the future for your next endeavor, and I hope all your variants are favorable.
I can't thank you enough for the experiences you provided us in the first 2 years thus far. You've helped build this amazing building, given us iPads, and helped us blossom, and we really appreciate it.
I used to see Dean Pizzo around, and each time he come back from the hospital, even he don't know exactly where I come from, but he still say, "How are you?" Stop by and wave to me every single time. But it's so nice, and I will remember him forever.